Hello everyone, welcome to this new video. In this video we are going to talk about early Vedic period. Okay, so हमने पहले बुद्धिज्म और जैनिज्म वाला ऑलरेडी कवर कर लिया है, वो वीडियो है चैनल पे, आप उसको देख सकते हो. बट पहले अर्ली वैदिक वाला वीडियो देखना, ठीक है, जो अभी हम कवर कर रहे हैं. सो इन दिस वीडियो वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट लाइक हाउ the late early Vedic period begins after the decline of Harappan civilization. Then we'll talk about the Rig Vedic period, which is also called as early Vedic period. Then we'll move on to Vedic literature, then political organization. Then we will talk about social life and economic condition, and lastly we'll talk about religions. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, let us talk about how the decline of Harappa happens and then how the origin of Aryans take place. So और Aryans का जो origin है वो बहुत ही controversial है. There are two views on it. कुछ जो scholars हैं वो ये बोलते हैं कि Aryans are native of Indian soil. That means they did not come from the outside. They were originally born on this land and they belong to this place. However, this is not sure and this is an unacceptable view. ठीक है, काफी लोग इसको नहीं मानते हैं. सो सेकेंड व्यू इज दैट दे माइग्रेटेड फ्रॉम सेंट्रल एशियन एंड यूरोपियन रीजन एंड दिस सीम्स टू बी एन एप्रोप्रिएट you can say theory. Okay, and there is a inscription which you have to remember. The name of that inscription is Boga's Gai inscription. It mentions about Indra, Varuna and Mitra and Nasatyas. These are what? These are the Vedic gods, the early Vedic gods. So the Bogasagai inscription which we have found in Central Asian region talks about these gods. Okay, so that's why we figure out that ये जो Aryans थे, they came from the Central Asian lands. So Aryans are supposed to have migrated from Central Asia in several stages. ठीक है, waves में आए, वो एक साथ सारे नहीं आए. ये 500 ईयर्स का जो पीरियड था 2000 बीसी से लेकर 1500 बीसी तक, जब हड़प्पन सिविलाइजेशन पूरी डिक्लाइन हो जाती है 1500 बीसी में, तब वैदिक पीरियड जो है वो स्टार्ट होता है. एंड दीज आर्यंस केम इन वेव्स. ठीक है, वेव्स में आए, पहला एक ग्रुप, फिर सेकेंड ग्रुप, फिर थर्ड ग्रुप, ऐसे करके आए, सारे इकट्ठे नहीं आए. ओके, एंड इनिशियली दे सेटल्ड इन द फ्रंटियर प्रोविंस, दैट इज द नॉर्थ वेस्टर्न रीजन, जहाँ से वो लोग आए थे वहीं पर उन्होंने अपना डेरा जमाया. एंड in the region of Punjab, that is on the western side. Okay, so these were the two regions where they occupied the land, and this region where 7 rivers used to flow. For example, Punjab means the group of 5 rivers. Okay, and 2 more rivers which used to flow here made the rivers 7 in number. Okay, so these 7 rivers were called as Sapta Sindhu in total, you can say. Okay, this is as per Rig Veda. Rig Veda mentions about the term Sapt Sindhu. And then after settling at the frontier, they started moving into the interior parts in the later stages. So this is how the Vedic period starts in India. So now let us talk about the early Vedic period and its general description and the facts which are important for the exam. So it begins from 1500 BC and lasts up to 500 BC, 10th 100 BC, that is 1000 BC, and after this the later Vedic period begins. Okay, so the main source to study this period is Rig Veda, and it is presumed that Rig Veda was composed while Aryans were in Punjab. ठीक है, जब वो पंजाब में थे तो उन्होंने ऋग वेदा को कंपोज किया. एंड ऋग्वेदा हमारे को 40 नदियों के नाम बताता है और साथ ही साथ उसमें 21 हिम्स हैं, यानी कि श्लोक हैं, जो कि जिनको कि नाड़ी सूक्त कहा जाता है. ठीक है, उसके बाद गंगा, सरस्वती, इंडस एंड इट्स ट्रिब्यूटरीज, उसके नाम मेंशन किए हुए हैं उन ऋग्वेदा में. एंड ऋग्वेदा आल्सो टॉक्स अबाउट ज्योग्राफी एंड नेम्स ऑफ माउंटेन्स लाइक हिमालयाज. Munjawat is equivalent to Hindu Kush mountains. Okay, so these two mountains are also mentioned along with the rivers. And Rig Veda is the source which also tells us about social, economic and political life. So before going to social, political and economic life, we are talking about the Vedic literature. Okay, so let us begin. So Rig Ved itself is a form of literary text. Okay, and the Veda, the word Veda is derived from the word with. Okay, and with means to know and signify superior knowledge. Okay, and vidya, that is education in Hindi, is also related to learning, right? So when the word with is there, it simply means to know and to know, and it signifies the superior knowledge. Apart from it, the Rig Vedic literature in total consists of four Vedas. As we all know, we have read in our childhood that there are four Vedas: Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, and Athar Ved. So let us talk about them in brief. So what is Rig Ved? So Rig Ved जो है वो सबसे पहले लिखा गया है. It is the oldest Veda, you can say, and it is divided into 10 mandals, and it has 1028 hymns यानी कि श्लोक. एंड जो ये हिम्स हैं ये होत्रीज के द्वारा पढ़े जाते थे. होत्रीज मीन्स यू कैन से अ फॉर्म काइंड ऑफ priest. Okay, so these priests used to recite these mantras. Then the second is Yajurveda. Okay, so the details of rules to be followed at sacrifices, जो भी हवन वगैरह या जितने भी sacrifices rituals वगैरह होते हैं उसमें जो जो भी चीज़ें होती हैं उसके बारे में इसमें डिटेल्स लिखी हुई हैं. ओके, एंड दीज हिम्स आर recited by other vayus, and there are two parts of it. First is Krishna, and the second is Shukla Yajurved. Okay, so you don't need to get into details कि इसमें क्या है और इसमें शुक्ला में क्या है. You just need to remember that it is divided into two parts. It is recited by Adhar Vayus. Okay, so these are two Vedas which we have spoken about, that is Yajurved and Samved as of now. So now let us talk about Samved. Okay, so we have spoken about Rigved and Yajurved. Now we are going to talk about Samved. Okay, so Samved is a book of chants, and the roots of Indian music can be traced back to it. It has 1549 hymns in all, which are recited by Udgatris. Okay, so you have to remember these kind of terms like Rigveda, recited by Hotris, Yajurveda recited by Adharvayus, Samveda recited by Udgatris. Okay, so this kind of terms can be asked. Then Atharved is what? Atharved is a book of magical formulae, and it contains charms and spells to cure diseases. Earlier, Atharved was not considered the part of four Vedas. Okay, it was in a separate category, but then in the later stages, Atharved was also accepted as a Veda. Okay, so this is all about the four Vedas. Now we are going to talk about the other sacred literatures, that is Brahmanas, Aryanas, and Upanishads. So let us see what are they. So Brahmanas are what? Brahmanas are the text which explain the hymns of Vedas. For example, suppose there is a two-line hymn in the Rig Veda. Now the explanation of these two lines hymn will be provided in the Brahmanas. Okay, so that is the whole thing. Then what are Aryanakas? These Aryanakas are the forest texts which were written for the students who used to live in jungle, and they had proper training while they were living in jungle, where they used to learn a lot of skills like military skills and the other educational skills. Then what is Upanishad? Upanishad is a philosophical text. It is also called as Vedangas. There are total 108 Upanishad, and oldest Upanishad is Vrihadaranyaka. Okay, so this is the oldest Upanishad. You have to remember this name. Now moving on to the political organization. So it was tribal in nature. Each tribe formed a separate kingdom. There were numerous tribes. Okay, they can ask you a statement based question whether there were multiple tribes or it was a single tribe. So it was a multiple tribe based culture. The basic unit of political organization was kul, that is the family. Okay, family was the smallest group in the society, and these families together, like small families, suppose 2 3 families, constituted a village. Okay, that is grama. Village is called as grama. The highest political unit was jana or tribe. Jana or tribe means when several villages came together and they form a part, or they made a group, it became a particular tribe. Okay, some tribal kingdoms are Bharatas, Matsasyas, Yadus, and Purus. So these are the four main tribal kingdoms which you have to remember. So the head of kingdom was called as Rajan or Raja or Rajan, same thing. Then there were two governing bodies. The first one was the Sabha, it was the council of elders, and Samiti, it was a general assembly of entire people in which various people could participate. And Vidhant and Gana were other assemblies, and you don't have to get into details, you just remember, okay, such assemblies existed. Okay, then Purohita was the first ranking official, and Senani was the army chief, and Gramani was the head of village. Okay, so they can ask you like, who was Purohita? Purohita was the highest ranking official. Then who was Senani? Senani was an army chief. Then Gramani was a head of village. Okay, so such question can be asked. So now moving on to the social life. So it comprises of four varnas, and Brahmana were the people who were at top, and their profession was to teach. Basically they were the teachers, and they also performed the priestly functions as well. Then Kshatriyas were there, who were rulers and administrators and the warrior class. Then Vaishyas were there, who were farmers, merchants, and bankers. Then Shudras were there, who were laborers. Okay, so society was patriarchal in nature, and child marriage was not in vogue. Right to property on things like cattle, horse, gold, land, and house, etc. existed. Then cow was also protected, and cow was known as Aghanya, and there was a provision that the cow should not be killed and the meat of cow should not be consumed, rather the meat of other animals should be consumed. ठीक है, तो काओ का मीट जो है वो खाने की इजाज़त नहीं थी, जो बाकी एनिमल्स थे उनको खाने की इजाज़त थी. Then Suma and Soma were the alcoholic drinks which were very prominent in this period. Now moving on to the economic life. So by and large this was an agricultural and pastoralist economy, and they retained their wealth in the form of cows. ठीक है, जिसके पास सबसे ज़्यादा गाय वो सबसे ज़्यादा rich. ठीक है. Then great importance was attached to the herd of cattle and domestication. As I told you, the number of cattle you had, it made you more rich, right? Then trade was not on large scale. Money and markets were not extensively used. Coins were not there. Okay, uh, so this was the general trend. Okay, although we have found the mention of some gold coins in the Rig Veda, but they were not in circulation. Okay, so that is the whole thing. People took various professions like carpenter, smith, weavers, and potters, and grinder of corn. Medicine was developed by then. Surgery treatment through herbs and charms were common. As I told you that Atharved has this kind of charms and spells, and it also talks about remedies also. So pottery produced in this period was called as ochre colored pottery. Okay, so this is an important fact which you should remember, because with the modern period the color of pottery changes. So that's how archaeologists have figured कि okay, this belongs to this belongs to this. ठीक है, तो इसीलिए pottery का जो नाम है थोड़ा important हो जाता है. Now let us talk about religious practices. So Indra, Agni, Varuna were the most popular deities, and Indra was the god of rain and destroyer of fort. He is also called as Purandhar. Just remember the name Purandhar. Then Agni was another god which acted as an intermediary between god and human. Nowadays also Agni is very prominent god. If you see, like all the Havan has uh, Agni as a part of it. So Agni is present, right? Then Varun god, that is Varuna god, which is related to water and celestial ocean. The nature of Rigvedic religion was henotheism, and henotheism simply means that there were several gods, but one or two god had special importance. Okay, and Indra and Agni were the one such gods. Then ceremony was practiced to worship gods, like yagd were done, offering used to happen, like milk and ghee. Uh, these kind of stuffs were used in the rituals. Then Surya, The sun god was worshipped in 5 forms, that is god of light. It was also worshipped in a form of god which is related to marriage, and a solar god, and they had different names for it. For example, Savitri was a god of light, Pushan was a god of marriage, and Mitra was god of solar related things. Then Vishnu was also a form of sun, and it is believed that Vishnu covered earth in 3 steps. Then other important gods were Rudra, which were related to animals. Dyaus was the oldest god, Yam was the god of death, and Sindhu was the river goddess. So this was all about this particular video, guys, in which we have spoken about social, economic, and political life, religious practices, Vedic literature, and some basic facts, and how the Aryans came into existence. So I hope you like this video. Kindly subscribe to the channel if you like it.